everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Hello in the future if you're watching this back on YouTube. Who knows? It could be anybody. I think we'll give it a couple of minutes just to give people a chance to join us. Normally takes maybe 2 minutes just to, get everyone settled in. Some people I think might hopefully join us with a cup of coffee, take kind of 15-20 minutes out of their morning. I keep saying morning because it's 10 a.m. for me. I'm based in Berlin, where TolaData's headquarters are based in Berlin in Germany. So maybe it's not coffee time for everybody. Maybe it's more a relaxing tea, but whatever you might be doing, we're very happy to have you. It's the first real episode of the Feature Focus today. We ran a pilot episode at the end of 2022. Maybe you've seen that one already. And during that one, we looked at our most recently developed feature. It's called the changelog. If you haven't checked that out, I definitely recommend doing it, especially if you're a current TolaData user, because it's our most recently released feature. So it will give you a chance to really learn about how that feature works and what you might do with it and how it could benefit you in the work you're doing in TolaData. So this is our first real episode. We're kicking off 2022 with this feature focus episode on creating your first project. The reason we're beginning here is because the project is really the first step in what you're doing in TolaData. I'll get a little more into this in a minute, but the whole idea of the feature focus itself is that we are going to run a succession of short live streams. That's why I mentioned kind of joining with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, because it shouldn't take longer than 15 or 20 minutes. So short live streams, and what we want to do is really deep dive into specific TolaData features, one feature at a time. So in theory, if you joined us for all of the sessions, you could become a TolaData expert totally for free. By really diving in deep on all of these different features with us. And the idea is that we're going to do it chronologically. So we're beginning here with creating your first project. It's really the first step once you've created your TolaData account, you've decided you want to use the system. The first thing we want you to do is create your first project. So that's why we're doing this today. And the next feature focus, just in case you're super eager and you already want to check it out, will be on the 8th of February. I believe it's a Wednesday. And it will be the second part following today's session. So we're still looking at your first project, the project details, but it's part 2. And we're going to look at reporting periods, disaggregation types, and data sharing. So the project details is what we're really talking about today. Creating your first project and beginning with some details. But where does that information actually lie in the TolaData application itself? So I hope you guys can see this. If you can't, maybe you can pause and zoom in or something, but I hope that you can. And this is what I have been calling for myself anyway, the features matrix in TolaData. So it's showing you pretty much every section that there is in the application itself, in the system. So you can see there's this blue border that I've put around the section we're looking at today. So it's the details section, which is stemming out from the project. So we're going to look at firstly how to create that project up here, but then deep dive a little more into how to interact with these first few tabs in the details section. So you can see we have the details, the sites, phases, stakeholders, and documents. So really, this portion of the project details is really where you're storing information, you're making everything super transparent for your colleagues that you're working with. It's really the first kind of step in getting everything up and running, getting your information together. But the project itself, maybe I've seen some of the list of people who might join us today and people who are interested in the Feature Focus. And it's a lot of current TolaData users, but it's also quite a mix of people who, as far as I'm aware anyway, have never used the system. So to explain for anybody who doesn't know, a project, I keep using this particular word, in TolaData, it refers to just a unit of data. So you might call it a program, or it could be something different. And actually, within the system, you can configure and make allowances. If you use different words, you can change the word project. But that's a question for another Feature Focus session, I think. So a project in TolaData is really just referring to one unit of data. And everything that you do in TolaData is going to stem from your project. So basically, to get started in any section, it's really best to click Add New Project first. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at how to do that and where to go from there. As I mentioned in that features matrix, there are 8 sub-tabs in the project details section. I'll go back for a sec just to show you. You can see those in the list. In that first column there. There are 8 sub-tabs in there, but today we're just going to look at the first 4, and then we'll have that second session on the latter 4. Why do we have projects in TolaData in the first place? It's, I think, an interesting and important question, because we want to understand, when we look at each of these features throughout these sessions, we want to understand, okay, cool, that's how the feature works and this is what I can do with it, but why, right? You always want to be answering that question for yourself, because the whole, or a large part of what you're doing in TolaData is trying to really save time, save resources, make sure every resource, especially time, is being used in the best way possible. So you don't want to be using features you don't need. I'm telling you, you need the project feature, because it's really at the heart of everything that you're doing in TolaData. When you're using the system, you need to have a project. So as I said, a project in TolaData just refers to a unit of data. And a unit of data itself, it could be, as I've listed here, an overall program. It could be a sub-project. It could be a collection of KPIs. Maybe it's a collection of donor-specific indicators, in which case you might label the project with the donor name if you want just that project to contain only information pertinent to that specific donor. You could have a really high-level project for kind of corporate-level monitoring, where you're aggregating results from other sub-projects. You could have a thematic area project, like maybe you have 5 sub-projects rolling out in the theme of education, and then you want to roll it up to a higher-level aggregated project into the education thematic area. You create a separate project for that. And really it can be anything you need. So it's really, really flexible, and I think important to keep that in mind. And this feature, as it says down the bottom there, it promotes transparency. Some project team members, that should say among project team members, I believe. Excuse me for that typo. It promotes transparency among project team members, information management, sharing, collaboration, making sure you're not traipsing through Google Drive to try and find a specific document to give you information about the background of a project. All of it can be in here. Your team know exactly where to find the information. So without further ado, let's get stuck straight into how the actual feature works. So the plan for the next few minutes is to walk you guys through creating your first project, adding some details, looking at the sites, phases, stakeholders, and documents. And then after that, we will have room for some questions, should you have them. So now we're going to move into TolaData itself. Some of you watching this may be familiar with the interface, but if you're not, we start over here with the navigation panel. And the project is the very, very top tab here, because, like I said, it's really the heart of what you're doing in the system. So when you log in, this is where you land. And the first thing you're going to do as a new user, or when you have a new project you need to create, is come over to this green button here, Add New Project, and I'm going to click here. And now I can enter the name of my project. So today I'm going to do an education one for an example, and we're going to call it the ABC School Project. I'm going to say that it begins maybe the beginning of this year, and let's say, for example, it ends in 2025. Let's just follow the standard calendar months and click Save. So now I've created my project. I'm being automatically put into the details section here, or rather, I've chosen my details section. And you can see within the details of this project, we have lots and lots of sub-tabs. So like I said, we're going to start with these 4, as well as the details itself. And for the next feature focus session, we're going to look more into these latter tabs that we can see here. For today, we're not going to worry about them, okay? So the first thing you can do once you've created the project is come to this details tab. The details, activity, indicators, any of these tabs here, which are slightly indented under the project in the navigation panel, they're always going to be referring back to the project which you've selected. So I've selected my ABC School project, so now the details are specific to this project or to this unit of data. So let's see what information we can add. We can give it a status. So I'm going to say it's in the identification phase. We can give it an ID code. Let's say, for example, we want to say edu, and go 1, 2, 3. Super straightforward ID code for today. The countries it's rolling out in, I'm going to choose Kenya. Maybe you guys don't know, but around half, maybe slightly less than half of the TolaData team is actually based in Nairobi in Kenya. So we're split between Berlin in Germany and Nairobi, Kenya. So today our project is going to roll out in Kenya. And the funding, you can add some funding information. Maybe you want to include the body, the donor. You can add some description information about your project, and you can assign it to a group. So I know I have down here the education group. Here we can have the description. Be nice if I spelled description correctly. You can add, I'm sure you can imagine lots of information in here, but for the sake of time, I won't do it for now. And this green box lets me know I've successfully saved and updated the project. So now we can see this kind of extra information in here. You may be wondering, the status, the group, these drop downs that I saw here, these are entirely configurable. So I've pre-configured these on my account. That will be a separate feature focus session. So how to configure those drop downs and things. The reason we're not starting there is because it's not 100% necessary. Once you've created your project, you can get stuck into other more pertinent things before configuring this type of information. And then you can come back and do it once you're a bit more familiar with the system. So we have updated the details. Now let's look at what sites we can add. So here we can see a big old map and there's no sites included. So if I were to click here, for example, add existing site, it's going to be empty. Oh, it won't be empty. Excuse me, everybody. I apologize for that confusion. So the reason that it's not empty, is my morning brain for you. I'm very sorry. The reason that it's not empty is because we have created these sites throughout the account, and I on my account on TolaData have a very high level of permission. So I can see all of the sites that have been created on other projects. So that's what we have here. If I had a lower level of permission, I wouldn't be able to see those. Or if I were a new user using TolaData and I didn't have other projects, then I also wouldn't be able to see the other sites. So we can say, for example, if you're a new user and you haven't created other projects, then this will be empty. But for me, we can see some. Should you not be in my lucky position of already having some in here to select from, you will click here to add new site. And then you're redirected in here to create the site type. So it's pretty straightforward. You can enter the name. So let's say mobile classroom, for example, ABC. Classroom correctly. The site type then. This is also configured in the admin console. You should really tune in for that feature focus session. I believe it will be the one that follows the one on the 8th of February. So the third session of this year. So this is a school. The office, let's say in Kenya, and it's an active site. You can also add some contact info for this site, and then you can choose exactly where it is. So here I can enter the exact latitude and longitude. I can also use the pin to choose precisely where my site is, and it's really, really detailed, okay? So you can imagine if you have a project in the field and it's a really remote location, then this is super, super useful for that because you can get completely precise about where that site is. And you can also, of course, add some notes up here too. So for now, I'm just going to submit that. And now I can see immediately it has updated with my map exactly where my site is. And I could click in here to check that information, or my colleagues could click in here to find the contact information or the precise location. And you can add as many of those as you need. So any sites relevant to your project or where different activities are rolling out, you can stick those in there. Next, we have phases. And there are currently no phases on my project because it's brand new. So I'm going to add a phase. And we'll say for the first phase, we want it to be the identification and design. I want that to begin with the beginning of my project, which was the start of the year. And let's say we want to be finished by the end of Q3. So, or Q1, excuse me, the third month is where my mind was at there. And we can click save. And immediately then that's appeared here. We can add another phase. We can call this the implementation phase. And let's say we want this to start when the first one ends, so beginning of April. And then because this is the implementation, maybe this is quite a general example, but that's going to be pretty long. So I'm going to give that until maybe the end of July 24. Click save. And straight away, I can see that's in there too. And I'll add one more phase just to really drill in how straightforward it is. So we'll call this evaluation and closure. And then I want this one to start where my other phase ends, just for example. There's, of course, option for crossover if you want. But let's say that's then the end of the year. Click save. And that's been added in there. You can, of course, filter these by day, week, or month to check in on exactly where your project should be. And again, the whole point of this is really storing this information, communicating it to your team members, and making sure it's all available for the right people in a really, really simple way, you know, all under the one roof. There's no questions about where to find this information or the exact dates or anything. It's all in TolaData. You can access everything. Same kind of logic then is applied to the stakeholders. With the sites, I had the same example. I already have some in here, and that's because, like I said, with the sites, I have that high level of permission on this account where I can see all the stakeholders from the other projects. So if you're an org admin or a super user, you'll be able to see all of that information. But if you're a standard user or if you're a new user with no other projects, you're not going to have that list. It's going to be empty. So in that case, you'll click add stakeholder here. And then you can give the stakeholder a name. So what will we call our stakeholder today? How creative am I feeling? Let's just go partner ABC. Not so creative today, Hannah. We have an ID code. We'll call it ABC123. You guys are blown away by my creativity this morning, I feel. The role you can add, maybe they're just we'll call them an implementing partner. The type, again, these are configured in the admin console. That will be a future feature focus session. Let's call this partner. And the country they're based in, we will stick with our Kenyan example today. And immediately then that's updated there. So you can come back and edit it if you need to. You can unlink it by clicking this button if it's maybe no longer relevant or if it was a mistake or whatever it might be. But the benefit of this, again, is that your team members, which is a section we'll talk about in the next feature focus session on the 8th of February. Your team members can come, they can see the list of stakeholders, they can see, you can add some extra information about them if you want, you can see exactly who's involved, who you might be reporting to, if it's a donor, maybe they have specific indicators, you can really make it clear for everybody in this section. And then the last tab that I want to walk you guys through today is the Documents tab. So right now there's no data to display, and that's because it's a brand new project. I'm sure you're getting the gist. It's not available because this is new. So what I can do is I can link a doc from my Google Drive account or from another location. I can even give it a pathway if it's not got a URL. So for example, if the document is, if we're doing an education project, maybe the document is in a school and I want to see the, let's say the trainees report cards. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be a URL. You can also add the pathway. So I want to say this is in room 101, room 101. And we're going to say cabinet 36A. And I can just click save. Here it is. If I show the path, anyone with access to this project on TolaData can come and see exactly where they can find this physical document. So I do believe that with the digitization of all of these processes, most of it is going to be online, stored in the cloud. But it's unrealistic to think that that is the case for everything. So you're also able to add those physical documents to TolaData as well. So nothing is getting lost and you're really promoting that information sharing among all of your team members. And that is as far as we are going to go for today. I hope you guys have some questions. If you are watching in the future and you have questions you're not going to be able to ask live today, you can go to the TolaData live chat or write to info@toladata.com. But for those of you who are with me, you can, I hope, see the instructions on screen. We're going to use Mentimeter to have the questions session. So you can either go to menti.com and enter the code that you see on screen, or if you have your phone handy, you can scan the QR code that's on the right there, and it should just pop up for you. The magic of QR codes never fails to fascinate me. I think they're wonderful. So maybe I'll give you guys a minute to do that. I will be able to share the questions live on screen as they come in as well. So I'll be able to answer them live here. I wish we could, maybe in a different format, have people actually join on screen, but sometimes people are a bit shy. It can be easier to have the questions done in this format where, you can write them in and you don't have to turn on your camera, or if your hair is all messy and you don't want to be on YouTube, it's easier that way. So yeah, I'll give you guys a moment. I hope that that's been clear. Maybe it's too clear and we're not getting questions, but let's see. Oh, we do have one. We have a thank you for the nice presentation. Looking forward to future sessions. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. If you want to sign up to the mailing list, if you go to toladata.com/feature-focus, you can see it on screen at the bottom there, the link, toladata.com/feature-focus. You can sign up to receive updates. So it's really handy. There's a little add to calendar link so that it'll always kind of be in your calendar when we're doing one. So like that, if you have half an hour where you want to join and get a little free education on TolaData, then you're more than welcome to do so. And the next question is, hi Hannah, can I organize my projects into portfolios? So actually this is a really interesting one, because the answer is yes. And the way that you're going to do that is via the aggregation feature, which is a few feature focuses away. But in a nutshell, yes, it absolutely is possible. And what you would do is you could have, for example, maybe you have, like the example I was doing today, an education project where you have indicators about running different trainings in different schools. Maybe you have the same project and it's rolling out in 6 different regions in the theme of education, and they all have some common indicators, but some different ones. And then you want to put those into the education portfolio. It's absolutely possible. So what you're going to do is create another project. You can call it something like overall education monitoring, or you can even call it education portfolio if you want to. And then you can aggregate those indicators from the sub education projects all up into that overall level. And then what's really nice is you can see an overall kind of sum of specific common indicators. You can weight the different indicators. You can, apply, what's the word I'm looking for? Adjustments for any potential double counting or anything like that. So absolutely, yeah, it's totally possible. We have another one. What does it mean, type of stakeholder? For this one, I'm gonna go back to TolaData for a second. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. So when I go back to the stakeholders tab, this question is coming from here when I click add stakeholder, and here we have type. So actually it's a really good question because there's these different types that are available to me here in this list. And the reason they're available to me is because I have configured these in my admin console. So that's going to be not the next feature focus, but the one after that. We're going to look at how to configure that admin console. As a sneak peek, your admin console is up here. I click this blue circle icon with my initials in it. And here is the admin console. So if I want to configure things, I'm going to click on this and go to the configuration tab. And then here you can see we can configure the different site types. We can configure the different stakeholder types. But we're going to look at that a little bit more in 2 sessions time. So you're already ahead of the game. Thank you for the very pertinent questions. If we have any others, I think we have about another 2 minutes, because I don't really want to take up too much of everybody's time and exceed the half-hour mark, but I really appreciate it so far. I'll give it maybe another second just in case. Nope. Awesome. That means that I hope anyway, that means that it was a clear explanation and that it was pretty easy to understand. I think the user interface is very intuitive. It's feedback that we get really frequently from our current users, is that the interface is very simple to interact with, so I'm gonna assume that's why there's not too many questions today. So with that, all I want to say is thank you very much for joining, whether you're here live now or whether you are in the future watching via the magic of YouTube. And the next feature focus, as I've mentioned, is on the second part of the project details. It'll be a part 2 to what we saw today. configuring your reporting periods, your disaggregation types, and your data sharing. So that's more about configuration of the project and how you're going to interact with the data a little bit later on. It'll be a really, really interesting one, I think, for current TolaData users and also for prospective ones, because it gives you a good idea of how to use those features and what you can do with them. And that's going to be on the 8th of February, so just under 3 weeks' time. I think it's Wednesday at 10 CET, live on toladata.com and on YouTube. And if you want to receive updates about that, again, you can go to toladata.com/feature-focus. And I think that's it. Thank you all so much for your questions, for your time, and wishing you a lovely, lovely day, lovely evening, whatever it might be. Thank you.